Welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we have a really highly customized, intensely specific mission on the docket.
Yeah, we are zooming way in today.
We are. We're taking that massive stack of campaign notes you shared with us, and we're focusing on one incredibly atmospheric slice of tabletop history.
And the stakes you laid out in these sources are, well, they're huge.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. You have this group of heroes who just survived a grueling ordeal. They managed to escape the horrors of Otamu's Forge.
Barely.
Right, barely. They crossed the water and they finally made landfall on Mesika Cay, this uncharted, jungle-covered island.
But they aren't alone.
No, they have 20 to 30 rescued refugees looking directly to them for safety, food, shelter, everything.
And the ruins they chose for that sanctuary, the Bone Temple, hides a massive creeping threat.
Yeah, a necrotic death cult actively occupying the space right beneath them.
So to set the parameters for you right out of the gate, we're putting blinders on for this deep dive. We're looking exclusively at the events of Session 11.
The pit of Brittlebones.
Exactly. We're setting aside the sprawling cast of characters and the world-ending campaign lore to focus entirely on a two-person surgical strike.
Just two of them going in.
Right. The party sends two heroes ahead into the dark to halt the cult's expansion and prevent grave raids near the vulnerable refugee camp above.
And the tactical dynamic between these two is just so vital.
It really is. On one hand, you have Bones, a wood elf shadow monk. He relies on agility, unarmed strikes, and this detached, highly observant nature.
And on the other hand, you have Belbrum.
Yeah, a devoted dragonborn paladin serving as the heavily armored frontline tank.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sheer cinematic atmosphere of this descent into the temple is something you really have to visualize.
The DM really painted a picture here.
They did.
Yeah.
The sources give such vivid details of these two radically different heroes stepping down these rough, uneven stone stairs. As they descend, the temperature plummets.
The air just gets noticeably colder.
And visually, you have this stunning contrast. Balbrum's paladin shield is casting this steady, reliable silver glow.
Which is actively pushing back against this eerie, sickly green light.
Yeah, flickering from sconces made out of goat skulls along the walls. It's so creepy. But the notes highlight a specific sensory detail that feels so much worse than the lighting.
The smell.
Yes, it's not just the scent of decay. The notes specifically describe the scent of stale blood mixed with swept stone.
That detail of the swept stone is actually a brilliant piece of psychological design.
How so?
Well, when players enter a ruin, they expect cobwebs, dust, wild beasts. But swept floors communicate intelligence.
Ah, right. It means someone is there.
Exactly. They tell the players that this space is active, it's occupied, and someone is maintaining it. That implies order, hierarchy, and purpose.
It's not just a random monster den.
Right. When you pair that meticulous cleanliness with the scent of stale blood, it subverts the typical mindless monster trope and immediately puts the players on the defensive.
And they don't have to wait long to see that hierarchy in action, do they?
Not at all.
In the very first chamber they step into, they find 2 ghouls and 3 robed zombies. But they aren't just wandering around aimlessly.
They're working.
Yeah, the undead are physically pulling on thick ropes, trying to topple a heavy stone statue. And they are being supervised by a fanatically devout dragonborn cultist named Akira Norixius.
And this is where the tactics kick in.
Right, because instead of trying to talk or sneaking past, the heroes launch their first strike immediately. Bones uses a darkness spell right out of the gate here.
What's fascinating here is the sheer tactical efficiency of that specific spell choice.
Because it just shuts the room down.
Exactly. In a tabletop setting, a darkness spell doesn't just dim the lights. It creates a sphere of magical, impenetrable blackness. It entirely disrupts the cultist operation by cutting off their line of sight.
And spellcasters need to see to cast, right?
Usually, yes. Spellcasters need to see their targets, and commanders need to see their troops to give orders. By plunging the chamber into absolute blackness, Bones neutralizes Akira's ability to coordinate the room.
That's incredibly smart.
It is. This isn't a long, drawn-out brawl where they are trading blows and droning hit points early on. The fight is over almost as soon as it begins, establishing the lethal competence of this two-man strike team.
And the visual the notes provide for the aftermath of that quick skirmish is just incredible. You have the dust from the scuffle drifting lazily through the silver light of the paladin shield.
Framed by total, sudden silence.
Exactly. But pushing further into the corridors, they hit a T intersection, and the environmental storytelling gets deeply unsettling.
This is where things get really creepy.
Yeah, there are 3 sets of skeletal remains lying in the hall, but they haven't just fallen where they died in combat. Someone has arranged them with disturbing care.
Like art,
We're talking about a skull resting perfectly balanced on a neatly stacked pile of ribs.
which builds directly on that earlier theme of maintenance we discussed.
hmm
Whoever's running this level of the temple isn't just surviving in the dark.
They're curating it.
Yes, they are actively curating the death around them, treating skeletal remains almost like interior decoration or religious iconography.
And it gets even colder as they push downward into what looks like a ritual chamber. Picture rusted iron shackles dangling from the stone walls and 2 heavy, stained stone slabs sitting in the center of the room.
Real torture chamber vibes.
Definitely. Bones, being the observant monk, moves to check a line of cell doors at the back of the chamber. He opens one, and sitting slumped in the dust are the remains of the temple's former high priest.
And this is where they find some serious loot.
They do. The notes mention they find some relics on this high priest. What exactly did they secure here, and why does the source linger so much on the sensory details of it?
Well, the loot is a perfect extension of the temple's lore. Bones finds a hidden wand tucked behind a loose stone, but the primary artifact resting beside the priest's skeletal hand is a magically enhanced whip of binding.
Designed to physically ensnare enemies.
Right, and the sensory details elevate it from a simple piece of equipment to a narrative artifact. The leather actually feels warm to the touch, contrasting with the freezing air of the dungeon.
And it has runes on it, right?
Yeah, the runes carved along its length pulse with a faint, steady rhythm, much like a heartbeat.
It almost feels alive, which is so ironic for a death cult.
It connects directly to the twisted philosophy driving this faction. Later in the session notes, we actually get their core motto carved into the temple walls.
Service through ordered decay.
Yes. If you examine that phrase, it acts as a cipher for everything you've seen so far. The swept stone floors, the carefully balanced skeletal remains, the undead being used for manual labor to topple statues.
It's a whole system.
It tells you exactly what kind of enemy these 2 heroes are dealing with. They view death not as an end state, but as a system to be managed, organized, and utilized for industry. It's an engine, not a graveyard.
That makes every step they take feel incredibly dangerous. And that brings us to a moment in the notes that seems small at first glance, but ends up being one of the most critical decisions in the entire session.
The trap.
Yes. They enter a vaulted chamber that leads to a polished black marble staircase. Bones is watching everything, and right beneath the steps, he spots the faint seam of a hidden pit trap.
But he doesn't disarm it.
No, he doesn't try to disarm it, and he doesn't trigger it. He just marks its location, and they move on. Why is that choice so significant mechanically?
It demonstrates the value of perception acting as a proactive survival tool rather than just a reactive one.
Because usually you just roll to avoid taking damage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In typical dungeon crawls, a trap is viewed strictly as an obstacle designed to deal damage to the players. By identifying the trap and consciously leaving it active, Bones and Ballbrum turn an environmental hazard into a piece on the chessboard.
It becomes a weapon.
It becomes a tactical asset they can keep in their back pocket.
You'll definitely want to keep that trap in your mind because the payoff is massive later. But first, they uncover a secret door hidden behind a row of statues with snarling faces.
The tension is already high at this point.
And the moment they pry the door open, the skeletal remains scattered in the room start to animate. A flaming skull rises up into the air, wreathed in unholy fire.
A classic undead guardian.
They have to fight their way through, pushing through the flames and shattering bone to finally secure the area. Defeating that guardian grants them access to one of the temple's secret vaults.
And this is where the dynamic between the 2 characters truly gets put to the test.
Here's where it gets really interesting. They step into the tight, dusty air of this secret vault. Sitting right in the center, acting as a magical arcane focus, is a magnificent palm-sized emerald dragon statue.
Valued at 2,500 gold pieces.
Huge payout. So Bones reaches out to take it. He touches the cool, smooth stone of the statue. And the second he does, the ceiling above him grinds open.
It's a trap.
But it's not a hail of poisoned darts or a falling boulder. A swarm of crawling, severed hands drops directly from the dark onto him.
Which is a brilliant and terrifying mechanical threat.
It's pure nightmare fuel.
From a gameplay perspective, a lightly armored monk like Bones relies entirely on his mobility and his ability to dodge out of the way. When a swarm of hands drops on you, they aren't just dealing damage.
They are grabbing you.
Right, they are attempting to grapple and physically restrain you. If a monk gets pinned down by a swarm, their primary defense is completely neutralized, and the action economy shifts heavily in favor of the monsters.
And the sources describe it so vividly. The hands are cold and damp, their fingers scraping and clawing at him, dragging him down.
But Balbrum doesn't panic.
No, the heavy-armored dragonborn paladin doesn't start swinging his heavy weapons wildly into the swarm, which could have easily injured Bones in the confined chaos.
Instead, he uses his breath weapon.
He takes a breath, steps back, and blasts a cone of freezing cold directly at his ally.
It's a phenomenally smart, high-risk tactical gamble.
Because he's hitting his own friend.
By unleashing that cone of cold, Balbrum intentionally catches Bones in the area of effect. He makes the conscious choice to freeze his own ally in a thin layer of ice, but the math behind the decision is sound.
Flash freezing the swarm.
Exactly. By doing so, he flash freezes the entire swarm of undead hands simultaneously. The crawling hands just stop moving, frozen solid in mid-grasp.
And Bones survives.
Bones survives the blast of cold damage, the swarm is entirely neutralized without entering a chaotic, drawn-out melee, and they safely secure the Emerald Dragon.
It beautifully illustrates the synergy between two vastly different characters.
The monk's risk-taking exploration is balanced perfectly by the paladin's protective elemental intervention.
You can just picture the visual of Bones chipping himself out of the ice with this priceless emerald statue in hand. But the noise of their exploration and that blast of frost is drawing unwanted attention.
Moving into the next chamber?
Right. They move on, and the scent shifts entirely. The stale blood is replaced by the smell of heavy mold and decaying paper. They've found the occult library.
And it's a mess.
The bookshelves are splintered and scattered across the stone floor. Standing in the middle of the wreckage are two massive, hulking ogre zombies, and they are just mindlessly smashing the ancient furniture to kindling.
They're acting under the orders of another cultist, a dwarf named Brittlebones.
The namesake of the session?
The very same. The notes describe him as completely deluded, pacing the room and ranting about the end of the world, his face slick with a mixture of sweat and the dust from the ruined books he's having his minions destroy.
But Elith and the ogres aren't the only entities in the room. Hovering in one of the deep alcoves is a ghost.
Lilindra Vox.
The temple's former librarian. She is flickering, translucent, and radiating this intense aura of anger and profound grief as she is forced to watch her life's work being pulverized by these undead brutes.
If you look at the tactical board they were facing, this is a nightmare scenario.
Yeah. It really is. You have two heavy-hitting ogre zombies, a fanatic spell-casting cultist, and a furious ghost.
Plus the terrain.
Right. The room is filled with broken shelves, creating what the game calls difficult terrain, meaning every step they take requires twice as much effort to move through. So what do our two lethal heroes do when faced with these odds?
They make the absolute smartest mechanical choice available to them. They run.
Which is so rare for players.
Tabletop players often fall into the trap of believing they have to fight to the death in every single room they enter. They let their egos dictate their tactics.
We've all been there.
But facing overwhelming physical force, a spellcaster, and a wild card, like a ghost in a room where their movement speed is severely penalized, that is a losing equation. They recognize a bad room immediately and fall back to a position of advantage.
And the chase sequence that follows is incredibly cinematic. They are sprinting back down the stone corridors, and you can hear the heavy thudding footsteps of the ogre zombies shaking the dust from the ceiling right behind them.
Heading right for the stairs.
Bones and Balbrum race back to the polished black marble stairs. They hit the edge of the steps, and because they were so careful earlier, they know exactly what they need to do.
They leap.
They leap cleanly over the hidden pit trap they marked an hour ago.
But the ogre zombies are operating on completely different logic.
Mindless muscle.
Exactly. They are simply following the basic movement commands of the dwarf cultist. They don't have the passive perception to spot the seam in the marble. They just blindly charge straight forward, trying to close the distance to their targets.
The payoff is so satisfying. The heavy ogres crash right through the weakened floor, plummeting into a 20-foot pit with this massive, dull, echoing impact.
The trap did the work for them.
The trap that Bones spotted and left alone just instantly neutralized the biggest physical threat in the entire encounter without the heroes having to swing a single weapon.
Which leaves only the deluded dwarf, Elith Brittlebones, entirely unprotected.
Elith chases them right up to the edge of the pit. He sees his undead muscle crushed at the bottom, looks up at the heroes, and before he can even begin to cast a spell, Bones and Balbrum strike him down.
Over in an instant.
The source material notes this one final, perfect detail for the end of the fight. As Aleth falls, the broom he was carrying clatters against the stone and lands right beside him. The sweeping of the upper floors is permanently done.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the aftermath of this fight carries a surprising amount of emotional weight.
I agree, because as the adrenaline fades, Bones and Balbarum push forward to do a final sweep of the upper halls.
And they find the living quarters.
A narrow passage leading into the cult's living space. It consists of 6 small, cramped chambers that just reek of mildew. And the environmental storytelling here presents a really stark contrast.
Lived in versus empty.
Yeah, 3 of the rooms show obvious signs of recent daily life. There are rumpled blankets on the cots, a pair of worn boots left near the door, and a cracked mug resting on a table. But the other 3 rooms are completely untouched.
Coated in dust.
Every surface in those 3 rooms is coated in a thick, undisturbed layer of dust.
Those empty beds tell the real story of what the players just accomplished. This was a faction that was actively trying to grow. They were preparing to fill those beds with new recruits.
Which would have meant more raids on the surface.
Because of this surgical 2-man strike, that expansion has been entirely halted. The upper halls have been cleared. The immediate creeping threat to the outside world has been systematically dismantled.
So what does this all mean? Why does this specific, highly tactical slice of a campaign matter to you, the listener?
It's a great question.
In a tabletop world that is usually filled with chaotic magic, world-ending prophecies, and massive armies, Session 11 proves that careful observation, manipulating your environment, and knowing when to retreat are just as heroic as swinging a sword. Bones and Balbarum didn't just clear a dungeon for experience points. By marking that hidden trap, by calculating the risk of freezing those undead hands, and by tactically kiting those ogres, this 2-man team secured a literal safe roof over the heads of 20 to 30 terrified, vulnerable refugees.
They took a space defined by order decay, and they cleared it out so it could actually become a sanctuary for the living.
The efficiency with which they executed the mission is truly a masterclass in tabletop strategy.
Traps were marked and repurposed against the enemy. A swarm of undead was locked down in a clutch tactical play. A fanatic cult leader was completely outsmarted, and a priceless arcane focus was secured to fund the refugees above.
It's an incredibly satisfying conclusion to the upper halls.
It is a victory, undoubtedly. But as you analyze the architecture of these ruins, it leaves you with a deeply unsettling question to ponder.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Bones and Balbarum have conquered the upper levels and secured a temporary sanctuary. But ancient temples, especially grand structures like the Bone Temple, are always built from the top down.
Meaning the deeper you go.
The older, more complex, and more powerful the architecture becomes. If the simple entryways and the basic living quarters required this much tactical perfection and resourcefulness just to survive, what horrors or what ancient sleeping secrets are quietly waiting for them in the unexplored darkness of the lower halls?
Well, on that wonderfully terrifying note, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the pit of Brittlebones. Keep observing your surroundings, keep your frost breath ready when things get dire, and keep exploring your sources. We'll see you next time.